You're listening to the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman, episode 209. I'm very, very excited about this one. On today's, I think you're the first person, Natasha, with an OBE.
Oh, wow.
So that's mega. So we're joined by Natasha Baker OBE, Paralympian. You've got lots of accolades. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So I'm sure that everybody listening is very, very familiar with you, what you do and your story. But can you talk to us about how you started riding? I've been doing lots of reading on you, so I know the answer. It's not going to know the answer, but it's a really interesting journey.
Basically, it's all my mum's fault. I was brought up on the family farm, so I'm fourth generation there, and horses have been a big part of my life since day one, literally out the front door and into the stables, which I mean is every young girl's dream, right? So yeah, and then I contracted my disability when I was 14 months old, and so I was actually riding before that, believe it or not. My mum had a basket saddle, and I used to be plonked on her pony and go for rides around the yard at, I think, less than 1 year old. So horses was very much part of my life from a very, very young age. And then I got my disability, and then obviously all focus was on getting me the best recovery that I could. But horses was just, I think it's one of those inherent things, isn't it? You're just drawn to them. And so I used to go to school, and as part of going to school, I had physiotherapy. And my mum and dad were very aware that they didn't want to push me into horses. And so I did lots of other things growing up. So I went to swimming club, in an able-bodied swimming club, actually. I played piano, I played violin really badly. I mean, violin, you have to be very good at to make it sound good, and I was definitely not on the very good spectrum. And I did brownies, like you name it, I was involved with it, and just nothing really filled my desire as much as horses did. And so I apparently used to nag my physiotherapist about how much I wanted to ride. So one day, I think I just went on about it too much, and she called my mum, and she's like, I don't think you realise how passionate Natasha is about horses. Have you thought about the RDA? And so that was kind of my step in the door, and we didn't really know anything about riding for the disabled before that. I tried normal riding schools, but having horses and ponies that didn't really understand my disability and not being able to use my legs, and also having instructors that didn't really realise as well, it was really difficult, and nothing really worked out. And my mum, being ultra horsey, she just used to get really frustrated at paying an arm and a leg for these like riding lessons, and I was getting nothing out of it. So when the RDA kind of came around, we didn't actually have a regular riding slot, because I was in South Bucks RDA, which is one of the biggest RDAs in the country, and they kind of had a crossover with RDA for therapy and RDA sports riding. And my dad was a greengrocer, and my mum used to teach every Saturday. So my granddad was in charge of taking me to my riding lessons. And I basically used to fill any cancellations. He used to call first thing in the morning and say, right, what's free? What can I bring her to? And I used to go into any group because there wasn't a permanent slot for me. And I think they then realized how dedicated as a family we were, how passionate I was. And yeah, as they say, the rest is history.
So cool. And as you say, that's just a whole different level of dedication. I think that the RDA is incredible. In a previous life, I used to be an instructor. We used to have an RDA group at the riding centre, and the amount of difference you see in, well, particularly when we had children come in, the that contact, that communication, they can move around freely on a horse, and it's just incredible to see that.
Yeah,
but that dedication going from different slot to different slots is brilliant.
Yeah, literally anything I could do to get on a horse, my granddad was willing to do. And I'm just incredibly grateful to all of the opportunities that my family gave me and the RDA gave me, because I definitely wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for them.
So as you say, your disability means that you have got limited feeling in your legs. So the horse has to rely on your seat and your
voice.
Voice.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, very much voice. So basically from just below my waist down, I'm completely redundant. So if I wear high-waisted breeches, basically where the buckle is, down from there, I don't work. So that's why I ride without stirrups. I can't really keep stirrups very well. And I actually had a nasty accident like a long time ago, really before safety stirrups, and got my foot stuck and was dragged. And so we just decided to take them away. It was easier to take them away, less risky. And I would struggle to keep my feet in them anyway. So we thought, right, let's just get rid. Helps with the core anyway.
I suppose it does.
And so yeah, I use my seat bone, my upper body, my seat, and my voice predominantly to maneuver and do everything that I need to do on my horses.
So how did you go from obviously being an incredibly dedicated rider with the RDA to winning a couple of gold medals at London 2021? 2012, not 2021.
It does feel like it was last year, to be fair. I watched the Sydney Games in 2000, and by that stage I was pretty much in regular slots at the RDA, and I was absolutely in awe of everything that the team did out there. And I'd never seen dressage before. I didn't really know what it was, but these dancing horses just totally got me. And it was actually Lee predominantly, because he's so disabled off a horse, and then gets on. I think he could make a three-legged donkey dance.
He's amazing.
He is phenomenal. And I thought, well, if he can do it, there's no reason why I can't do it. And so I announced to my parents that one day I was going to win a Paralympic gold medal in dressage. I was a very sassy 10-year-old, and it hasn't changed much since either. And so yeah, that was it really. I'd set my dream when I was 10, and I'm one of those people that I will just do anything it takes to make that possible. And so yeah, that was kind of when it all started. And I remember going to the RDA and talking to Clive Milkins, who was my trainer at the time, and saying, right, Clive, I want to win a Paralympic gold medal. And then we were really fortunate that the team that went out to Sydney came to the RDA centre afterwards and did a bit of a demo. And I met Lee, who was like my hero, and he offered me to hold his gold medal. And I was like, nope, the first one I want to touch will be my own. Yeah, as I said, sassy 10-year-old.
I love that. I'd be like, yes, put them on me.
And so yeah, and that's kind of where it started really. I was then talent spotted the year after and put onto the pilot scheme for the world class start and potential, it was called then.
Cool.
It's the performance pathway now, I think. And yeah, and that was it. And I kept nagging my parents. I was like, I want my own horse, but they wanted to make sure that I kind of got through the boy phase and yep. Didn't get distracted. That definitely didn't happen. And so I had a few ponies on loan when I was 12, 13. And then just before my 14th birthday, my mum and dad bought me my first horse from Pammy Hutton. And then we went out and started competing nationally and internationally. And yeah, that was kind of when the whole international thing started. And then it just kind of keeps going up a level. So I was very, very fortunate.
I was just going to say, is it quite different buying a horse that only goes on your seat and your voice? But obviously Pammy's got such a long history with people who are para riders as well. So that would have definitely been handy, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. She had a great understanding of what I needed, and he was quite a young horse. I think he was 6 when we bought him. And he was born. They bred him, and they bred him for Charlie, and he was called Charlie as well. And he was actually really naughty. He bucked me off so many times. He got to know that actually I couldn't use my legs, and so he could go faster backwards around the arena at one stage than he would go forward, just because he was really cheeky and he sussed out my disability. And we changed things up, and that's when we decided actually that I was probably best to move the horses back home to my parents. And that's kind of when we stepped it up a level, and I got a new trainer, and then that's kind of where I just stepped up a level and started competing internationally.
What was it like when you got I'm assuming it was a call, not an email, to say, oh, by the way, we'd love you to represent Team GBR in London?
It was actually face-to-face. So it used to always be done the final day of Hartpury International. So we would compete Wednesday, Thursday. The selectors would have their meeting on Thursday night, discuss who was going to be on the team. And then we would find out after we'd competed in the freestyle on the Friday. So Friday was always a really nerve-wracking day.
Absolutely.
We had to go and ride and do our freestyle and then find out whether we were on the team or not. And so I'd been to the European Championships the year before and won double gold there. And I had an amazing 2012. We were unbeaten and JP was just on fire. And so I kind of thought that my chances were fairly good, but obviously still being such a rookie, you just never know. And so for anybody that's been to Hartpury, we were in the big arena, the big indoor arena. And then our manager was in the small holding arena next door. And we were basically being called one by one from the big arena into the little arena. And then we had to walk out the other way so we couldn't see the reactions of everybody else.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been quite so nervous as that. And it was me and Sophie Wells who were last. And we were like, no, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. And then I think I did. And I was crying before I even went into the meeting. I'm an emotional wreck. I'm the definite crier of the team. And then David just put his hands on my shoulders and was like, you're going. And I just then cried even more. And I was allowed back in that way because my parents were in there and because I was like second to last. And obviously Sophie was obviously still on the team as well. And yeah, we just cried a lot and celebrated. And it was just incredible. Like, to get the chance to compete at a Paralympics is awesome, but to get the chance to compete at a home Paralympics is just unbelievable.
Oh, it's incredible. And obviously you did amazing things there. And you won 2 golds.
Yes.
And wasn't one of them like a record-breaking score?
Both of them were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And what does it feel like to get there, to sort of realize that dream that you had when you just said, so when you were 10, well, that's what I'm going to do, and to be there, trotting down the centre line? What was that like?
So I agreed with my sports psychologist that we need to be in full kind of focus mode. So when I went into the arena, I was like, right, I need to be able to take everything in because I want to. So I agreed that I was going to look up, look around, kind of get my surroundings, and then be in the zone. And I think I was actually really good and really disciplined in doing that. So I guess I only really took in what had happened when I'd finished my test.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally, we're going in and we're riding the same dressage test that we've ridden over and over and over again in the same whiteboards. What happens outside those whiteboards is kind of irrelevant. What competition we're at is kind of irrelevant. We're just doing the same dressage test to the best ability that we can. And so I was very, very set on that was my thinking. And I'd worked really, really hard with Joss. And so I did go in and think, right, I'm just riding the same old dressage test. And I probably went in with a little bit more like, I don't know, because I was clapped in, which was just insane. Because I was wearing a British flag and I was the first British rider out of all of the riders there. So everybody, even though they were told not to, everybody clapped. So I was like, oh, wow, I've never had that before. And JP felt the same, and he really rose to the occasion. And then I just concentrated on doing the best test that I could. And then I came out, and I think that's when it sunk in that I was competing at my first Paralympic Games at home. And yeah, just an unreal feeling. I don't think there's actually an adjective to describe how insane that moment was. And I just wish I could do it all over again. Just to feel the amount of love and support and everything that we had, not just from the 13,000 people that were there watching, but from the whole country. It was just beyond my wildest dreams. Like, it was better than anybody could ever explain it. It was just, yeah, it was awesome. And then, yeah, to have to go in and do it 3 times. I think the next time I probably felt more confident going in. Obviously having a good result on the first day definitely helped. But going in the second day and knowing a little bit more of what to expect from JP and from, the arena and what was going on, that kind of picked my confidence up, and that was my medal winning day, and it was incredibly close, and I was really, really early in the class, which was quite scary. So I think I was fifth or sixth to go. I was like 9:30 in the morning, and the class didn't finish till 11:30. So I had 2 agonizing hours of just waiting to see what happened. But yeah, luckily they came close, but not close enough.
What opportunities came from the back of that? Because I know you do work with different brands and you're very active on social media, but what opportunities came off the back of London?
I'm really lucky. So most of my sponsors have been with me since before London. So I'm really lucky that I've had some really long-standing relationships with my sponsors. But it was very strange, like walking into town and being recognized. That was a bizarre feeling. I also got the most insane invites. Like, we got invited to Buckingham Palace to have a royal reception. I got invited to Hello Magazine's, was it 25th birthday or something, and Rod Stewart sang happy birthday. Like
oh my goodness.
Just literally like pinch me. We got invited to the Royal Box at Wimbledon. I got my MBE. Just so many incredible invites. We got loads of gifted things that just got sent out. It was just a really crazy time, and I felt like a little bit of probably a Z-list, but like a little bit of a celebrity. It was really strange, and it was like my life had turned upside down, all because of 5 minutes in the arena. And I'm the type of person, like, I would go to the opening of an envelope if I was invited. I thought, do you know what, when is this going to happen? I didn't know what was going to happen after that. I didn't know whether I was going to be lucky enough to go to, Rio and Tokyo, and you don't know what's going to happen, no, do you, in the future? And so I was like, I'm just going to milk this for what I can and make the most out of every opportunity. So I did make myself quite ill. I think I was out 11 nights in a row once, and I was burning the candle very much at both ends because I was still riding and training.
Oh, crikey.
So yeah, I did make myself a little ill, but it was worth it. I had a great time.
That is impressive. That is very impressive.
I was 23 then, so I could do it. Now at nearly 33, I'm not sure I could manage.
Oh, I don't know. Wow. And how did that did it all of a sudden kind of come to a stop, or did it just peter out, or do you still get those kind of amazing invitations and things like that now you're sort of on the list?
yeah, sometimes I do. So like the National Television Awards, they invited me back 3 or 4 years in a row. Pride of Britain, so that kind of thing does happen. I've been to Pride of Britain 3 times now, so yeah, like it does happen. It normally, it's a bit like a roller coaster. Like it definitely peaks after a major championship, especially a Paralympic Games, and then like in the middle of the cycle it definitely goes back down. But that's kind of nice because it gives you a bit of balance, and it also makes it more special when you do get invited to these things again. I think, you know, it's more of an excitement, because you just don't know whether you are going to get invited. But yeah, I must be still on some lists, so I still get some pretty cool invites.
And you couldn't be doing back-to-back nights out for the whole time anyway. You would be poorly.
No, I would be exhausted.
Absolutely exhausted. And then of course you went off to Rio in 2016. I'm horrible with numbers and dates anyway, so this is you didn't do too badly there either, did you?
I did pretty well there. It was a very different games for me. I think going into London 2012 as the rookie, although I'd done the European Championships before, I still felt very new into that level. Whereas going into Rio, I was the one that everybody was trying to beat. I was the current Paralympic champion. And so, yeah, the pressure was very much on, whereas I didn't feel any of that pressure when I went into London 2012. And so again, my sports psychologist had changed, and I was working with a lady called Kate Goodger, and she was working really closely with me, my mum, and my trainer, Lisa, for nearly 2 years, I would say, just to try and overcome that feeling of expectation and pressure. And although you think it's coming from elsewhere, it mostly comes from yourself. And I did realize that it was me that was putting that on more. But I think knowing that we were an unbeaten team going into Rio, and I was selected on the team this time, whereas I was an individual in London 2012. I was definitely feeling the pressure a lot more. And, you know, JP had been there, he'd done it, you know, and so, yeah, it kind of was, I felt expected that I was going to come out and win the gold. And luckily I did deliver and won the 3 golds there, which was just amazing. On day one, I did not think that was going to happen, because he took off with me as the bell went on the first day of competition. Literally, the bell, he was scared of these, you know, the scoreboards that they put at the side of the arenas. JP was a massive scaredy cat. Like, I had to nurse him around. They had these fans, because it was so hot out there. They had these fans to keep them cool, and he just hated them. I didn't have one single good arena ride before the competition started, because of these bloody fans. And so, sorry, didn't mean to swear.
Fine, crack on. We're all good with it.
So yeah, it just so happened that I went past this fan and the bell rang at the same time, and I think the noise of the fan, the noise of the bell, and he just literally whoosh down the long side. I dropped my whip, and then I went into the arena. Literally, it felt like his ears were up my nostrils. Like, he was so tense. And so, yeah, I did really well to get him through that. And luckily that was the team test. So it wasn't for individual medals. And then each day he got more settled, and we worked through it, and he was a good boy. And obviously we did well enough to come home with the 3 golds, which was just, yeah, after that incident, quite mind-blowing, really.
Definitely. And did the kind of the feeling of that pressure, did that get better when you were at the games, or did you feel it sort of building? Because it's not, I completely appreciate that the pressure's on you, but also it's keeping a horse sound all that time to get it to where you want it to go. And there's so many aspects to it, particularly I imagine when you're traveling abroad, there's other things at play as well. There's a lot of stuff going on, and just normal pressure, let alone the additional pressure of feeling that you are expected to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kate did an amazing job with how I prepared for that. And it was very much about controlling the controllables. You know, I can't control what happens on the plane. I can't control the weather. I can't control what the judges think of me. All I can do is pull my best test out under the circumstances that I'm given. And so, you know, that's what I went in there to do. I wasn't going in there to ride for a particular score. I wasn't going in there to ride for a particular medal. I was going in there to ride the best test, to get the best circles, to get the best halts, to be accurate. I was just trying to kind of process it in the smallest sense that I could. And I really broke down the tests, and I used a lot of imagery, and every single night I would go through my test in my mind, and not just like, oh yeah, go down the center line, X hold, C track right, you know, extended trot or whatever, but like really breaking it down. So, you know, like, okay, he's gonna fall through the right shoulder, so I need to keep my right rein, and like really like small little nuggets of information that I needed, so that when I went into the test, all I had to do was that process that I'd been doing every single night. And that really helped me, because that's fundamentally all I had to do. I just had to go out and just do the best test that I could. And that made me a pretty chilled individual. And I think everybody was actually quite shocked at how, I'm quite a laid back person anyway, but I really want to do my best in every situation. But I think just the fact that I got there, and I had worked so closely with Kate and with Mum and with Lisa, that I could just relax and do the best job that I possibly could.
So I was on a masterclass the other day with somebody, and they were talking about that level of visualization. I feel like it was an Olympic athlete who used to visualize like a run or something that way. And it was like how they felt at each moment, and thinking about their foot hitting the floor, not just, well, I run from that point to that point. Exactly. It was, as you say, that level of detail, and your brain thinks you've done it before.
Yes.
And that helps too. Yeah. I'm not a psychologist, but when you were saying about it then, I thought that's, yeah, obviously it, you know, it does the job. And then of course, fast forward again, and there was 2020 Tokyo year. Then something else happened in 2020, and that all went out the window. What was that like for you? Because I know for everyone who's been preparing for, because it is that 4-year cycle for the next Olympics, and then it just got removed.
Yeah, it was really funny. I remember in the November of 2019, one of our liveries coming up to us and saying, "Oh, have you heard about this virus that's in China at the moment?" And I'm not very good with news. I try and keep myself to myself. I find the news far too depressing.
Could not agree more. Could not agree more with that.
And so I was like, "Oh, what's that then?" And he was saying, "Oh, it's some coronavirus, and you know, apparently it's really bad." I was like, "Oh, it'll be fine. We had Zika virus for Rio 2016, and that was nothing. It'll be all right." And then a few months later, the whole world was shutting down. Yeah, it was mad. And I think, so we kind of started our season in February of 2020. And then I went out to commentate in Germany, came back, did the Winter Championships, and wasn't feeling particularly great at the Winters. And then literally the day after was bedbound. And now looking back, I am convinced that I had it then. And then we shut down. But the Olympics and Paralympics was still going ahead. And that was really, really difficult, because I couldn't see my trainer, I couldn't see my physiotherapist, and I was kind of carrying on. My body was slowly declining, and I was getting stiffer by the minute. And I couldn't really do so much with Lottie, because she was feeling the tension in my body that would not normally be there, because the physio does her magic stuff with her fingers and sorts me out. And so my training was going downhill after like a month, and still no news about the Olympics and Paralympics. And it was really, really difficult to try and imagine, especially when all the other countries were at their different stages as well. And, you know, I was doing my best, but things weren't really happening. And so I actually just resorted to hacking. And then when the news came that it was going to be postponed for the year, it was just pure relief, to be honest. And having a new horse as well, we only got Lottie in 2019. So having a new horse, it was great for me, because it gave me another year to get to know her. And so we basically just kind of put a pause on training. Mum was doing a bit of lunging. I was doing loads and loads of hacking, and doing a little bit of pole work. And then once we opened up again in, what was it, June, July or something, Lisa could come back, Claire could come back, and we were training as normal. And within a month, I would say I was back up and running and out competing again, and everything kind of went back to normal. And then through the second lockdown, they said that because we were an elite sport aiming for the Olympics and Paralympics, we could carry on. So Lisa and Claire, both of my trainers, were still then able to come and train me. I was still able to go to physio, wasn't able to do anything else, but at least I could carry on riding. And so we kept going through the winter, so that when things started again in 2021, we were up and running and ready to go. And the squad were amazing. They were so supportive, and we had pretty much weekly or every other week Zoom calls just to catch up. And, you know, if we needed any support from the psychologist or whatever we needed, it was on hand for us. And then pretty much when we hit January, February in 2021, we had some behind closed doors competitions. So it was just the team. And so we were able to start getting out, because obviously we'd lost so much time in 2020. We needed that time in the whiteboards in front of judges, just, you know, polishing up on what we needed to do ready for Tokyo.
And what was the experience like going over there? Again, I imagine it was very different to London and very different to Rio as well.
Yeah, it was a bit odd. We weren't staying in the village, and I really love being in the village because I'm a very social person. I love making new friends, chatting to people from other sports. But on the plus side, it meant that I was much closer to my mum, and so Claire was the trainer that came out. Claire Gallimore came out with me to Tokyo, so we were in the same hotel together. Whereas normally in Rio and in London, the athletes are in the village, then the grooms are in grooms accommodation, and the trainers are with the owners in another hotel. So we're all very split up. Whereas this time we were all together, which was really, really lovely, because I don't really feel like I got to spend any time with my trainers or my mum at other games. It just felt very different. It felt a little bit more like a World Championships or a European Championships, because we didn't really get to mingle with anybody else from any other sports. It was a holding camp for athletics, so we got to see some of the guys from athletics. But yeah, it was an odd games, having no spectators and competing at night. That was the first time I'd ever done that.
It's the humidity, isn't it?
It was hot.
Yeah,
it was really hot. So competition started at 4 o'clock and pretty much went to about 10:30 at night. And I was always a bit later. So I think my earliest time was about 8:30, up to like 9:30. I think Sophie Wells had a 10 o'clock one once. So,
wow.
but yeah, it was really late. So we made sure that all of our training was done at similar times to when we'd be competing. So Lee and Georgia were a little bit earlier in the grade 2s. So they made sure that they rode a little bit earlier on the training times. Sophie and I stayed a little bit later because we knew our competition time was going to be then. And yeah, we just went out there, and it was very different as well, like not having the pressure on this time, because although we were a very experienced group of riders, we had very, very inexperienced horses. You know, none of them had ever been to a championships. Mine and Lee's or mine and Sophie's had never been out of the country. So wow. Yeah, Lottie was born and bred in the UK, as was Breezer, but I think he did an international in Belgium. So I think it was Lottie and Donnie that had just never been out of the country. So for them, it was a really big ordeal, you know, getting on the plane and traveling halfway across the world. And so we weren't expecting to win a team medal. We thought, you know, we might do well to win a bronze. So to come home with team gold was just, I mean, the most unlikely, but the most amazing thing ever.
Did you notice from either of the other Olympics there was that sort of surge as much as there was after London? Or do you think because it was on home ground, it was a bit different? And I suppose as well with Tokyo, we were still like drifting in and out of lockdown, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, disinfect your eyeballs, don't literally anyone listening, but you know, there's so much messaging going about.
It definitely hasn't been the same coming back from Tokyo as it was from the other two. Definitely got the most after London. Again, I think because it was a home games, we definitely had the most impact on the country and those kind of events. And I think in Tokyo as well, we were lucky because the time difference really worked for us, that people were able to follow our sport. But for some sports, it was really difficult to follow, because if they were competing in the morning or even early afternoon in Tokyo time, it was in the middle of the night in the UK. So it was quite difficult to follow. Whereas obviously in Paris, that's just around the corner. So I'm hoping it's going to be much more like London was. I think we're going to get a lot more people over from the UK to hopefully come and support us. And there is only an hour's time difference. So I think that is going to be a very, very different games again.
And as you say, it's not even that far away, because when you compete in 2021, it's only a 3-year window.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
I mean, you did very well on horses that hadn't left the country before. So, you've got a little bit more experience with your horses now under your belt.
Yeah.
And recently, obviously, you've had other exciting things going on. You were awarded an OBE for services to equestrianism.
Yeah.
That must have been incredible.
That was awesome. That literally was last Wednesday I went to pick that up. So very fresh. It was incredible. I had Princess Anne award it to me, which was lovely because I know Princess Anne rather well. And so we had a lovely little chat about horses, and she asked me how, as I got married earlier this year as well. Yes. So she asked me how that went, and am I planning to do Paris, and how's Lottie, and everything. So that was really, really sweet. And then when I went for a lovely meal afterwards with my parents and my nan, husband obviously, and can't forget him, and my trainers and the owners of Lottie as well. Joanna came with us, so that was really, really nice and good way to celebrate.
And just, as you say, you got married not that long ago, and there was a huge spread it was hello?
Yes.
Which was amazing. You look completely beautiful. And it looked like you had the best time ever.
Honestly, I am one of those girls, I've dreamt of my wedding since I was about 2 years old. I think I watched far too much Disney as a child. And so basically, all of my close friends knew that I had a secret folder on my phone of all wedding ideas, wedding dresses. Literally, I was probably a little bit obsessed with it. I just needed to find a future husband. This folder was there before Mark. And then obviously Mark came along, and we met actually in London 2012, and then we got together in 2014. So I had to wait a little while until he popped the question, and then I just loved wedding planning, and we had the most insane weekend. It was the best weekend of my life. Like, London 2012 was just incredible. And up until then, London 2012 was the best time ever. But I can honestly say that marrying Mark and having our wedding weekend was just incredible. And I wish I could do it every weekend. It was magical, and everything I dreamt of and so much more. And it was just the best.
Have you shown him the folder?
He has seen it. He saw it when we got engaged. So he did know that the folder existed, but I said that he wasn't able to see it until he proposed. But I think that's probably the reason it took him so long to propose. I think I scared him.
Well, you've got there now.
Any girls listening, maybe don't tell them about a secret wedding folder on your phone if you do have one like me.
Top tips right there. And I was saying earlier, obviously you work with different brands, and you're very, very active on social media, which is amazing. And got to be thinking about social media, obviously, but I know that you're obviously very passionate about many, many things, but accessibility and ableism are things that are really passionate to you. And I want to know all about it, because being someone that's able-bodied, I want to understand. And I think for a lot of people, it's probably a lack of education, a lack of understanding. I think some of the things you've been dealing with the last week, not so much, but just so tell us about what they are, like what is ableism, what is the accessibility challenges, and what can we do? What can we do to help?
So ableism is basically the same as all of the other isms. So it's the way that disabled people are treated differently to able-bodied people. And that can be in behavior, in language, in, again, similar to racism, sexism, you know, it's exactly the same. It's just towards people with a disability. So I'll use this weekend as an example.
Absolutely.
I went out to Cork for a christening, and I had a great time in Cork, but arrived at Gatwick, signed in, checked in, and then went through like security and everything. That was all fine. Got to the gate, and they said, "Oh, how have you got here?" So I was like, "Well, I pushed myself here. Did you not go to special assistance?" I said, "I don't need special assistance. I've got my own wheelchair." "Oh, well, we might not be able to get you on the plane then." Why? So I booked and said, when I made the booking of the flight, I said that I needed assistance getting onto the plane, that basically I couldn't do the steps, and that I would need something called an ambulift. So basically you go in, it lifts you up to the door of the plane, and then off you go. So I said, well, I put that on my booking that I would need it. You guys should be aware. So they were on about not putting me on the plane because I hadn't been to special assistance at the airport.
So not so much that they couldn't help you, but that you hadn't done.
I hadn't done what I was not told that I had to do.
Brilliant.
So at check-in, they should have told me that I had to go to special assistance. But I fly a lot, and I mean a lot. And I've never had to do any of that at any airport around the world. So I obviously wouldn't have known that I had to go to special assistance and book in, and then sit there while they put me in a wheelchair that I don't know, and I'm pushed around by a stranger in a wheelchair that's potentially uncomfortable. And like, there's just no need for it when I can wheel myself to the gate, you know, get on a lift and get myself onto the plane. But another instance, when I go into supermarkets and I'm in my wheelchair and there's something on the top shelf that I can't reach, the amount of people that ignore me, literally just flat out ignore me. They can see that I'm trying to get this thing from the top shelf and just don't even come and offer to give me a hand. Some people do, some people don't. Wow. And just, yeah, like, and then to the other extreme of people coming along and patting me on the head and saying, "Well, aren't you doing well getting out and about, dear?"
Oh my, which one's worse? Which one is worse?
I don't even know. They're both as bad as each other. I mean, it's,
my God.
And this is things that people with disabilities face like every day. I've got another friend that has been like wheeling herself along on the road, and some stranger has come and pushed her. I mean, how scary is that? Having somebody, a complete stranger, come up behind you and push you. Like, he doesn't know where she's going.
That's
like,
awful.
Yeah, it would be the same as coming up behind some able-bodied person and picking them up and carrying them. You wouldn't do it. So why would you do it to somebody with a disability? And it's just raising awareness about how to deal with people with a disability. We're not any different. We just have things that we might struggle with a little bit more. And, you know, I'm not painting everybody with the same brush. And there are some really, really lovely people out there that are genuinely really sweet. Last week I was in Sainsbury's, and this lady came up and she was like, "Look, we've turned up at the same time. We're probably going to go down the same aisles. If you need anything, just shout." And like, that's a really lovely thing to say. And actually, I caught her down the fruit juices, and she picked one off the top shelf for me. And, you know, I just think if you can see that people are struggling, or if people ask you for help, then that's fine. But to be patronizing and say, "Oh, aren't you doing well getting out and about?" Like, oh my God. In all fairness, that's a bit of a generational thing. But you know, it's really, really frustrating. I just want to be treated as a normal human being, and you know, have somebody, if somebody's around and can see me struggling, to just say, do you need a hand, are you all right, can I help you? Like there's nice ways of doing it without being rude or without being ignored. And I honestly, I say it to all of my friends that come out with me that might not be as experienced of coming out with me. I'm sure that when I'm in my wheelchair, I get a cloak of invisibility. The amount of people that walk over me, that walk back into me and pretty much end up on my lap, I think people just don't see me.
Oh my God.
Bearing in mind, I'm in a bright pink wheelchair.
I was thinking, I am sure I've seen your wheelchair at like a Beta International, and it was definitely quite bright. It wasn't something you would miss.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly quiet either, am I? So but
in the best possible way, as in it's just ridiculous. You know, you don't. No, I can appreciate that is just not at all acceptable.
No, and when I park in disabled spaces, I get the most evil looks, because obviously I don't look disabled, but what does disabled look like? That's
the thing, isn't it? That is absolutely the thing.
Yeah, there is, you know, just because I think people think that disabled people are old or must look disabled, and okay, unless I'm walking around, I don't look disabled. So yeah, I get the like looks of daggers, you know, when I do that. And like in restaurants and stuff, obviously it's a law that everywhere has to, you've got me on my high horse now, so no,
but this is, it's really important, because some of the things you have just said, I was just really horrified. Someone would come and pat you on the head and say, aren't you doing well for getting out? She's won gold medals for the it's just so, it's so patronizing. I'm really shocked.
There's lots of like restaurants and hotels that use disabled toilets as storage rooms, or don't have, you know, the emergency red pull cord high up to the ceiling because it gets in the way. And like, you know,
just the point, isn't it? It's meant to get in the way so it can be used.
Precisely. And the amount of places that have steps to get into that don't have another access for somebody in a wheelchair or somebody with a disability. And it's just things like that. Like we have to plan our days out. Like an able-bodied person would just grab their bag, grab their coat, get in the car, off you go, drive. You know that where you're going to be able to walk into. You know that you're going to be able to find a toilet that you can access. Like they are basic human needs. You would be so surprised at how many times I've been to places that I can't get in and that I can't use the toilet. And you know, like we need the loo too. You know, it's just, it's not acceptable that still in 2022 we have to face these issues. And you know, I appreciate that we're lucky in this country, and that we are a lot further ahead than a lot of other countries, but still that's not an excuse. Like they need to take it more seriously. And actually, one of the questions that one of the accessibility guys asked me yesterday, so obviously I can walk short distances with my walking stick, so I came off the plane, got in this lift, got down to the bottom, and he was like, oh, do you need your wheelchair? Do you need your legs?
You know, I just thought it'd be funny to bring it along. I just thought it'd be a great thing to just...
It's a new accessory, don't you know?
Oh my goodness.
And he's an accessibility guy. Like he's customer facing with people that have accessibility issues. And he asked, oh, do you need your wheelchair? Like, and it's just things like that, you know, common sense, unfortunately, is, far too common, far too not common. Yeah, I can't even get that.
I know what you mean.
Not very common. Yeah.
we have got quite a way to go, clearly. So what can we, anyone listening to this podcast, what advice would you give them to help this? Because as you said, I think sometimes it's probably just complete ignorance and not looking where they're going and not thinking outside their own bubble.
Yes.
But if it is just due to people being a bit concerned they don't want to offend anybody, or what can we do? What's good advice?
I think in like the supermarket kind of environment that I was chatting about earlier. If you see a disabled person that is struggling or looks like they need help, just go over and politely say, look, I'm here. If you need a hand, just let me know, or can I be of any help? And I think that would be really well received. And I think if you go into a premises, a business that you think, how would somebody in a wheelchair get around here? You know, there's steps going up, there's not a disabled toilet or anything like that. Just bring it to their attention. I went to a hotel actually at the end of last year, and there was no wheelchair access, steps up to it, no wheelchair rooms. And so I just sent them an email and said, just so you're aware, it's actually breaking the law. You know, I'm lucky that I could do it with some help from Mark, but there would be many people that could potentially book the hotel that are permanently in a wheelchair, that turn up at 8 o'clock at night and can't gain access to the hotel that they've booked, and then have to find another hotel. You know, that would be awful. So I think it's just maybe being a little bit more aware, maybe of the language that you're using around disabled people. You know, I get sometimes, oh, must be so nice to be able to sit down all day.
Just holding my head in my hands. That's
like,
oh.
You know, like, and I'm like, well, it would actually be really nice to be able to get up and walk around all day. That would be quite nice for me, actually. And I guess it's just being a little bit more aware and a little bit more thoughtful to the language and to what you would say to somebody with a disability. But I think for me, the biggest one is just being open to help somebody potentially that you see that is having a hard time. And I think most people would go up and help somebody potentially that was elderly.
Yeah.
But there's no difference in helping somebody that's in a wheelchair or using a frame or whatever they might be.
No, that makes perfect sense. I was going to ask you, before I let you go off and live your life, about the kind of highs and lows along your journey, because with horses there's always amazing highs, and I think that will probably be like London, but there's also these blooming crushing lows that come even when you are doing everything in your power. How have you, obviously I appreciate you have had those, and how have you recovered from them to carry on going on and, you know, achieving? I think for me, the hardest time was when we lost JP so suddenly. And I think it's giving yourself time to get over things like that. And it does take time. And however long that is, it really doesn't matter. And I was very aware after I lost JP that I did need the time to get over that loss before I came back and started competing again. And it might be that you have a change of heart, and that's okay. And it's accepting that how you're feeling is okay. It's normal. I have an amazing team around me, and I am so lucky that both of my parents are amazing. Both my trainers are amazing. Mark's incredible. And, you know, I think talking is really, really important, and talking about how you're feeling, and don't let things bottle up. The more you bottle things up, the worse the outcome will be. And I think it does help, because I am an emotional person. I cry when I'm happy, I cry when I'm sad, and I am very good at just getting my emotion out. But I think that does help me in circumstances like that. I can have a good old cry, have a good chat with my team. We will rally around. And I think for me, the thing that keeps bringing me back is my passion for my horses. And I've always got a goal. Like, there's always something going on that I want to get to next, that I want to achieve. And my dad's always said, the moment that you don't enjoy it is the time to call it a day and to retire. And I'm still enjoying it. And yes, there are days that are rubbish and you have a
whether that's like a bad training session, whether you've got a bit of a headache and you really don't feel like doing it today, or whether your horse has gone lame and you're out of competition for either forever or for you know, for a year or whatever, and you know, both of those have happened to me. I think it's about accepting it, and then thinking, right, well, how do I want to move on? Like, what do I want to do? And that might take, as I said, that might take time to realize what you want to do. But then once you do, then making steps and making a plan, and love my plans, making a plan of how you're going to get there. And it's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to feel like rubbish, and it's okay to feel crap, and it's okay to take your time in making decisions like that. And I decided in 2017 that I wasn't going to compete after I lost JP, and that, you know, it took me a little while to find another horse, and you know, I decided to adult, and we bought a flat that year. And I always say that there's two Natashas. There's like the human Natasha, the human Natasha gets married, she buys a flat, she goes out shopping with her friends, and like that's the normal Natasha. And then there's the riding Natasha, the athlete Natasha, and they're two very different people. And I think that's how I keep so much balance in my life, because I have, and it works perfectly now, because the normal Natasha is Natasha Giaconelli, and the Natasha riding Natasha is Natasha Baker. So I literally do have two different names for my two different sides.
I like that.
but you know, and I think it's really, really important to accept that, to move on in your own time. No. I've probably just said the same thing about a million times then.
No, not at all. No. Not at all. Not at all. But it's been amazing speaking to you. Is there anything else you would like to share before I ask you all the places we can follow you online and through social media?
I don't think so. I mean, I can literally chat for England, so I'll chat to you all day.
I've loved it. I've absolutely loved chatting to you. You're such an inspiration. And,
thank you so much.
Absolutely loved it.
Oh, thank you.
So where can people follow your journey online, keep up with what you're up to as both of the Natashas? Because I know you take us along on a lot of your journeys. As in, we didn't literally go with you to Cork, that would have been weird, but the weekend, you know, we followed you along. Where can we follow you online?
So Instagram and Facebook are my two main ones. I'm at N Baker Pararider on both of them, or you can type in Natasha Baker OBE on Facebook and it should pop up there. So yeah, they're the two most frequent ones that I use. I try and remember to story as much as possible on Instagram. I don't think I'm very natural at it. I just like, I get so wrapped up in my life. I'm like, oh, I should have taken a picture for that. I should have like, I don't know. I could do a lot more, but I generally forget. But
I like seeing what's going on.
Oh, thank you. But no, I do enjoy doing it. And yeah, it's just so lovely to be able to chat to everybody that follows me. And I do try and like all of my comments, and I absolutely read every single one of them. And I try and respond to as many DMs as I
10 out of 10
can.
10 out of 10 on the, when I do quite a lot of social media coaching, so absolutely 10 out of 10 there.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for chatting. It's been really great to speak to you, and well done on everything, on your OBE, because that's obviously the most recent thing, but everything. I can't wait to see you at Paris and what you do there.
Fingers crossed. Got to get there first.
Yeah, everything crossed, definitely.
Thank you so much.